Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for day two of the PMTC's 2021 annual conference. We have a full schedule for you today with 4 educational seminars, as well as the PMTC Aviva Private Fleet Safety Awards, the Young Leaders Group Education Bursary, and the 2020 Driven to Lead graduation ceremony. Just before we begin the day's events, I would like to thank our title sponsor for today, CPC Logistics Canada. CPC has been a longtime supporter of the PMTC at the highest levels for many years, and we thank them for their continued support. I have a brief sponsorship message from them here that I will queue up, and I will be back in a moment.
I'm Chris Trice. I've been a solo Class A driver for longer than I care to remember, and I've driven through almost every state on every kind of rig you can think of, and probably some that you can't. All that experience has been an excellent teacher, not just on the road, but in my life. I've learned how important it is to remain patient, no matter how impatient the rest of the world may be. I've also learned there's a relationship between the company you drive with and the client you carry the loads for. The better the one is, the better the other seems to get. I've been with CPC for 3 years now. Everybody here knows what they're doing, and our clients know what they're getting. Performance on the bottom line. And for me, that means performance on the dotted line, no matter where that dotted line may take me.
A lot of transportation service companies talk about delivering for their customers the way Chris Trice does. Only difference is, Chris is a National Private Truck Council Driver All-Star with CPC Logistics. And he's been delivering on what he's said for over 1 million miles, along with thousands of other CPC drivers all across America. CPC Logistics. You'll find our transportation professionals around offices, under hoods, and in warehouses. But more than anywhere, you'll find us on the road, where we've been for 40 years.
Thanks again for your continued support, CPC. Now, let us move into our first seminar for the day, entitled The Time for Natural Gas is Now. Heavy-duty trucks total 5% of all vehicles on our roadways, but they account for 42% of all smog-forming transportation-related greenhouse gases. Can ultra-low sulfur natural gas vehicles be part of the solution? Chad Lindholm, VP of Clean Energy Fuels, will delve into the technology and provide an overview of fueling with natural gas and its advantages. Chad leads sales initiatives and creates strategic growth opportunities, including station development and fueling programs to support fleets transitioning to RNH, CNG, and LNG. Chad manages a department of 50 employees covering business development activities across over 40 states, as well as Canada. At the conclusion of Chad's recorded presentation, we will move into a live Q&A period. Same as yesterday, questions can be asked by using the Q&A option in the drop-down menu of the chat feature of the Zoom feed. Remember, only the moderator will see these questions, and I will pose them to Chad when we bring him on live after his 30-minute presentation. So without any delay, I will now move into Chad's recorded presentation. I hope you enjoy it, and we will see you back here in 30 minutes with any questions you may have.
Good morning. My name is Chad Lindholm. I am the Vice President at Clean Energy, and I wanted to start this morning by thanking the Young Leaders Group for the opportunity to speak before the Private Motor Truck Council of Canada. This morning's topic, I'm going to walk through natural gas for transportation, specifically in the medium and heavy duty truck space, and why we strongly believe that the time for natural gas is now. We're going to touch on technologies, solutions, and infrastructure. Along those lines, some key areas that I want to cover with you all this morning include, why should you even consider adding CNG to your fleet? Some updates on natural gas technology and how that's evolved, specifically in the heavy duty space over the last decade plus. Equipment solutions readily available and proven out for today's fleets. Certainly the question on, well, where do I fuel my trucks once I go down the pathway of considering a potential purchase? So advancements in CNG and renewable gas infrastructure, and then some next steps and opportunities. We'll finish with what hopefully should be a collaborative question and answer session. So why add CNG to your fleet? Well, there's certainly a multitude of reasons. We're going to just start with some simple points. Today, heavy duty trucks, as most of you folks probably know, total about 5% of vehicles on our roadways, but account for about 42% of all smog forming transportation related greenhouse gas emissions. Low emission natural gas trucks, a possible solution to this. At Clean Energy, we certainly believe so, and I'm going to talk with you on why we believe that to be the case. Fleets that achieve the highest benefits of adding natural gas to their fleet typically have some or all of the following scenarios at play. They have the same dedicated routes day after day. They're looking to reduce what continues to be increasing costs related to fuel and maintenance. There's high driver turnover costs and attrition that continues to be a challenge in the industry. We're looking for ways to attract and retain drivers with new, clean, technology-forward vehicles. Certainly can be a carrot. We're looking to improve overall customer service. And then the last two are becoming more and more the focal point across a whole multitude of industries in North America. Sustainability targets. What shippers out there and customers have targets in place, and is an executive team that supports those plans and are actively looking for ways to achieve those targets. And then along those same lines are trying to improve their overall ESG scores. So again, if any or all these bullet points sound like your fleet, we believe natural gas and renewable gas is a solution that you should strongly consider. I'm going to now allow you to view a Cummins natural gas video and what to expect when you take delivery of your truck.
What if you could drive a truck that's actually good for the environment? A truck that uses clean, renewable energy with an engine that's as quiet as a car and can run over 1 million miles. Welcome to the future of transportation, featuring the world-class Cummins natural gas-powered engine.
And the future starts with you. As a driver, you are about to enact real change as we pivot from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. Let's take a few minutes to learn more about the exciting choice you've made to drive a natural gas-powered vehicle.
You can't beat a Cummins engine. They've been making diesel engines for more than 100 years and are in almost every market throughout the world. Now, Cummins leads the natural gas engine market and has since 1986.
This natural gas engine shares 80% of the same components and parts as our diesel, and uses the same heavy-duty hardware set for extended service life. It's 10 times quieter than diesel engines when idling, and features a maintenance-free exhaust treatment system so you don't have to deal with DEF. Refueling is fast and there's no fuel smell. Oh, and no active regen is required.
One of the questions we're asked most is natural gas safe? Absolutely. Renewable natural gas is lighter than air, so it rises, dissipates quickly, and doesn't accumulate in low places.
Your truck might be fueled with compressed natural gas, CNG, or liquid natural gas, LNG. You'll be trained separately on how to use your specific fuel type. But the flash point of natural gas is much higher than number 2 diesel. Natural gas combustion happens at 1100 degrees, while diesel is 410 degrees. So unintentional combustion is highly unlikely.
This clean natural gas resource is 100% renewable, and its reduced impact on the environment is nothing short of amazing. NOx or NOx levels and particulate matter is 90% below current EPA standards. Plus, using renewable natural gas drops greenhouse gas emissions to near or at sub-zero levels. Just incredible.
All right, hope that was informative. So Cummins and Cummins Westport has a strong move to zero with a product line from 6 to 12 liter engines that essentially covers class 6, 7, and 8 vehicles that fuel on either C, NG, LNG, or what's becoming more and more prominent, renewable natural gas. Who is Cummins Westport? A joint venture between two companies, Cummins and Westport, Cummins being the largest builder of commercial engines in the world, and Westport Fuel Systems, a world leader in gaseous fuel engine technology, headquartered right here in Vancouver, British Columbia. They offer a range of engines from 6 to 12 liters, as I mentioned before. These are manufactured by Cummins, coming right off the assembly line with over 80% parts commonality with the diesel platform. These are not conversions. These are not aftermarket. These are engineered right into the chassis of widely available and well-known OEM platforms, including Mack, Volvo, Peterbilt, Kenworth, and Freightliner. There's more than 80,000 natural gas heavy-duty Cummins engines in service worldwide. So again, this is not a new technology. This is not a technology that is not proven. There are literally millions of miles road tested in a whole multitude of application and in terrain and as well as weather conditions that range from one end of the spectrum to the other to prove out this technology works and works well. Another important piece is parts, warranty, and service. There is a network of established dealerships throughout North America with trained technicians to ensure that vehicles are properly maintained, are quickly serviced, and back out of the road for you to serve your customers' needs. More on the technology and why we want to show you that it's as clean, or in some cases even cleaner than electric technology that's in early infancy stages of evolvement. This new 12-liter natural gas engine is certified to the CARB and EPA's optional low NOx emission standard. What does that mean? It's 90% cleaner than the diesel standard, which provides lower NOx emissions. And when you couple this with renewable natural gas, you actually have the ability to reverse net carbon intensity. Let me explain a little further. So let's talk about emission criteria. This is NOx, and NOx is what we think of when we think of air quality, when we think of potential challenges with lung development and asthma and so on and so forth. So from left to right, you have a natural gas, an electric, and a diesel truck. On the natural gas front, as was mentioned before, you have an engine that's certified at 90% cleaner than the current diesel standard. That means it's a 0.02 grams per brake horsepower hour on the NOx cert. You have electric that when plugged into the California grid actually produces 0.07 grams of NOx. Not at the tailpipe, but certainly back at the production plant that's producing that and generating that electricity. And then you have your standard diesel trucks that's certified at 0.2 grams. Let's move over to carbon emissions. RNG is the lowest carbon alternative fuel. While that may not be widely known, and certainly up to this point has not been widely covered in media publications, and certainly by policymakers in the industry as a whole. This is data straight from CARB and Current Fuel Pathways, published about 6 months ago. And you can see from left to right as we move from gasoline, diesel over through hydrogen to renewable diesel, electric, and different forms of RNG, how that carbon intensity score is measured. So when you're looking at fuel types and grams of CO2 per megajoule, 100 being the gasoline and diesel standard, moving over to, let's stop in the middle at electric, being at just over 16, RNG in various forms, whether it be landfill, wastewater, food waste, or the ultimate version being dairy gas, all provides a significant reduction in carbon emissions as compared to gasoline and diesel. And then when compared to even what's widely at least portrayed as the cleanest alternative, electric, RNG from food waste, and then even more importantly from dairy gas, actually has the ability to produce negative carbon emissions. That's pretty exciting stuff, and that's why not only the industry, certainly clean energy, is heavily invested and continues to move down the path of what's considered upstream RNG development to bring more projects online that can produce additional volumes in the RNG space to inject into the pipeline and deliver into the transportation space to folks in the truck. Let's talk a bit about decibel levels and just overall quietness of the operation. This is important, certainly in as vehicles come closer and closer to neighborhoods, whether it be refuse, as this example, or even some mid-mile and last mile. Noise pollution's becoming more and more important to constituents in various communities. Spark ignition provides a quiet operation. Communities certainly have commented and noticed about that noise advantage. And what does that mean? There's some noise comparisons that you see to the right on decibel levels with our peak torque, as well as idle or no load, on the black chart being your standard diesel truck and the red chart being your natural gas truck. So that's, again, about a 90% reduction. What does that mean as you look at the bottom left? One diesel engine idling is louder than 10 natural gas engines all idling together. That's a significant advantage when we're thinking of noise pollution. Let's hear from one of our fleets.
Here in Fair Oaks, we haul bulk milk from local farms in trailer fulls down to several processing facilities in different states. We go into Michigan. We do some in Indianapolis, Indiana. We also travel into Kentucky and Tennessee. We haul roughly 55 loads a day into those facilities, utilizing roughly 44 trucks total, the vast majority of which are CNG powered trucks. They basically run 24/7 except when they're down for service. They're on a pretty severe duty cycle here.
In a 24-hour period, we'll have a driver come in and do on average a 12 to 14-hour shift, sometimes less on a good day. He'll come back, drop the truck, and then a second driver will take it for another, 10 to 12-hour shift.
CNG engines have proven to be very durable and reliable in what I would consider to be almost an extreme duty cycle or operational environment. We do not have some of the ongoing exhaust type issues that some diesel powered units have. Downtime has not only been competitive, but has been probably better than some experiences with some other powered fleets. Most of the engines before they were refurbished were close to 1 million miles. Every unit we're operating now, in total, of course, some have been rebuilt, but they have 1 million miles plus on all the chassis. So a lot of miles there. Trucks run between 600 and 650 miles per day each. So they're staying very busy. Obviously, on a dairy farm, there's a waste product from cows, and that waste product is then transported into and fed through an anaerobic digester that produces methane gas That gas is then fed to the utility and pumped through the station into our trucks. So they're taking a waste product and turning it into something that can actually move their product to market. It's kind of a full circle, a renewable operation that's obviously has advantages for everyone. The performance of the CNG engine has been, from a drivability and roadability factor, is equivalent to a diesel equivalent. Operationally, they pull very well. They operate very much like any other truck. From a drivability standpoint, we find that our drivers actually prefer these units to other options out there.
Merging onto traffic when we're hauling 52,500 pounds of milk onto a busy highway, I'm able to get up to highway speed or near to it, 45 to 55 mile an hour range, and the same as any diesel that we have in our fleet. And these diesels are our backup vehicles. And even when we're pulling hills, we're not dropping any more gears, we're not losing any more power. They are comparable in every way, in my opinion, to diesel. You take care of them, proper trip inspections, and they'll get the job done.
Drivers are operating actually a very clean engine. Diesel, as we know, is wet and dirty, and if you spill it, you get that on you, and from a driver standpoint, it kind of stays with you throughout the day. The CNG, if there's a little leakage or whatever, it dissipates very quickly. You don't go home smelling like CNG. The fueling process for CNG is different than that for fueling a diesel truck. And when you institute that sort of change, there are growing pains to any operation. And when you have experienced drivers who are used to a certain thing for decades, have to adapt to something new, of course there's questions about how is that going to work? How is the fueling process? Is it safe? What kind of safeguards are in place? What's going to happen if I get in an accident? All these different things that needed to be addressed, and of course have been over time. Those fears have proven to be unfounded for the most part. So just an education and awareness of the new process and items.
It is a sense of pride. I like that I'm running a newer technology, cleaner equipment. There's the environmental edge to it. And if it's a feasible, viable solution to a diesel engine, and it works well with our type of dedicated day-to-day operation, I think there's a definite business advantages to it.
I'd like to now change gears a bit and talk about where the industry is going. We're not resting on our laurels of being around with proven engine technology for the last, frankly, 3 decades, and evolving into different engine platforms, as well as different segments of the overall transportation sector. We are evolving, as I mentioned, in the RNG space, which provides significant benefits to carbon emissions, but we're also evolving in efficiencies that relate to hybrid technology. And in this case, RNG paired with electric. One of these companies that's exciting to watch and see what they're doing, and we're certainly engaged in working with them and customers to get test products out on the road, is Hyliion. There are 2 different products, one available today. It's an electric power outer, has about a 400 horsepower engine, has enough horsepower to pull long combination vehicles up to 140,000 pounds. There are demo trucks. We'd love to work with you to get your hands on one of these vehicles and a driver's behind the wheel to test it out yourself. What's coming later this calendar year is a fully electric drive engine. This is over 500 horsepower. And our goal on this is to run the vehicles on RNG in terms of how you're going to produce that electricity. You can use existing RNG infrastructure to do that. There's no need to build expensive electric stations. And again, this will be available in Q4 2021. So a bit more on demo trucks that are available today. There's a 2020 Freightliner right here in Ontario, Canada, that we'd love to help you get your hands on so that your drivers can test it and your fleets can get an overall feel for the technology. This technology has over 500 horsepower and nearly 3,000 foot-pounds of torque. other demo trucks available as well as for sale, but certainly demos today cover anything from model year 2015 up through 2019, various day cabs from Freightliner, Volvo, and Mack. Love to get your hands on these if you are interested. There's also a number of used trucks for sale. If you're not quite ready to dip your toe into brand new truck inventory, we can talk through optionality and help connect any fleets with the various parties that have these vehicles available. Some have been sold. This is a sample. Plenty more have come offline and are looking for their secondary life, covering anything from model year 2013 all the way up through 2020, and the various OEMs, Kenworth, Freightliner, Mack, as well as Volvo. Real quick on clean energy, what exactly do we do? I get the confused question asked from time to time, well, do you sell trucks? Are you an advocacy group? Do you broker finance deals on vehicles? What exactly do you do? Well, at the end of the day, clean energy is a natural gas fuel provider with a focus on moving more and more into the RNG space and delivering sustainable, renewable natural gas throughout our growing infrastructure in North America. We certainly touch all those other areas I just mentioned, but in a way that's nothing more than to be an advocate for the industry, an advocate for your truck fleets, and really a consultant in a way to help ensure that you have the most up-to-date information to work through making a decision as you move into this next decade. We were founded in 1996. We're the largest provider of natural gas for transportation in North America, fueling over 50,000 vehicles each and every day at over 540 fueling facilities. We design, build, and operate these various stations. And as I mentioned in the RNG space, becoming more and more a critical focus of our company, we are the largest provider of RNG to heavy-duty transportation fleets in North America. One agreement that we're excited to be a part of is a partnership we developed with UPS back in 2019, where we are in the process of delivering well over 170 million gallons of RNG across their network of RNG powered trucks at stations covering various sites in states in the US. We have a goal within our own sustainability plan that we just released a few weeks ago to offer 100% RNG at every single station we serve in North America by 2025. And we are well underway to not only meeting, but exceeding that goal. We're more than just fuel. There's a lot of components that we recognize fleets need to consider when looking into the space beyond just fueling services at the top, but working clockwise with me, RNG supply investment. We work on grants and financing for fleets to help look at creative ways to buy down the cost of the vehicles you're considering purchasing. We certainly provide the various components related to equipment at fuel stations, an engineering and construction team responsible for now building or upgrading nearly 800 locations in the last 25 years. Facility modifications, any work that needs to be done at maintenance phase to ensure that you're code compliant and can safely perform maintenance on natural gas vehicles. Heavily involved in low carbon RNG, specifically in the dairy space. Along those lines, environmental credit generation and monetization. And then at the end of the day, a service and support team that's now over 230 technicians that are company employed that oversee our network across North America to ensure 100% uptime on stations so that you not only have easily accessible sites to get fuel at, but that you have sites that are reliable and can consistently fill your vehicles safely and quickly so that you can get your drivers and trucks back on the road. Just a sampling of some of the customers we work with. I'm not going to go through this entire list, but we're proud to be involved with programs that now have been announced with Amazon, McDonald's, FedEx Freight, Unilever, Owens Corning, AB InBev, Enterprise, Hertz, Waste Management, Pepsi, and a whole number of other prominent global players that are not just in demonstration phases of rolling out RNG truck technology, but a lot of these folks are heavily invested in this platform and have been for the last several years. We move even further into the evolution of our industry and moving beyond just compressed natural gas. We have an eye on green hydrogen, and we believe we are in a great space to support that transition when ready. And we are ready to work with fleets where projects make sense. Because our stations already are in place with compression equipment, we right now are in the process of taking that current setup, which has RNG being produced at landfills or dairy farms, being processed, cleaned up, put into the pipeline. That pipeline is then fed to compressor stations and then ultimately dispensed to vehicles. In transitioning to hydrogen, that same process on the front end does take place with RNG that's processed and purified. It's injected into the pipeline. That RNG then can be utilized at hydrogen reformers that would be installed at existing natural gas stations. It would go through a reformation process, then a compression process, and ultimately dispensed into hydrogen vehicles. We're excited to be at the forefront of this transition as it happens over the coming years and complements really what's already taking place in the evolution of natural gas moving into the RNG space. And if and when ready, that technology will continue to evolve into the hydrogen space. That we talk quickly about getting access to fuel. Believe it or not, there is a vast network of fueling facilities spanning all over North America. This is a sampling of our infrastructure, over 540 sites, covering 42 states in the US and every province in Canada. Typically in Eastern Canada, there are now over 20 locations that are available to trucking fleets like yourselves regionally, some of which we operate, some of which others operate. But would love to talk with you about routing and lanes and where the most convenient and economically feasible fueling stations are for your routes. We also are excited to announce that we are moving quickly into Alberta with the construction of sites in Calgary and Edmonton specifically for the truck space. Ian's believing some next steps, some near-term opportunities that you may want to consider. Attend one of the upcoming show and ride sessions happening throughout Ontario. We can talk more about that offline. Requesting a demo truck, getting behind the wheel, again, seeing is believing. Hiring some of the many, many independent owner operators to haul some loads for you using the natural gas powered trucks they already have in their service and are running lanes throughout Ontario. Consider looking at the purchase of either a brand new or a used natural gas truck from one of the many OEM dealerships throughout North America, and then talking with us and others about any programs available on tax credits, on government incentives or grant funding, and then different finance and lease programs that might be available to make this an economic decision as much as a green decision. And with that, I want to thank you for your time this morning, and let's move over to what hopefully will be a very collaborative Q&A session. Thank you.
And I'll ask, thanks for that presentation, Chad. If you want to bring yourself off of mute, turn your camera on. There you are. How are you today?
Great, thank you.
Good. So we'll move right into it. Great presentation. And I do have several questions that have popped up in the chat here. So First one I got, what's the weight differential between the CNG tank versus diesel fuel tanks? And what kind of mileage will a tank of CNG achieve? So I think obviously that's going to depend on the size of the tank and your capacity. So to make this easy, let's say it's a 150 gallon diesel equivalent tank. Or would it make it easier for you if it's 100? Maybe that'll be easier for round numbers, but whatever's easier for you, let's pick a capacity and then pick what the weight difference is and what the distance would be that you could expect.
Sure, very common question and a great question that we regularly get, Mike. We start with just a rough average of about 150 gallons on board a truck. Important is fuel capacity, not over-speccing the amount of gallons that could go up to, frankly, 240 gallons, not under-speccing it, which could be as little as 45 gallons, a single rail-mounted tank. The fuel system and the tank package is where the vast majority of the incremental cost of a natural gas truck lies. So again, very important to spec these trucks correctly. You don't want to be having to fuel more often than needed. You certainly don't want to be running out of fuel, but if you're consuming 50 gallons a day, you don't need 200 and something gallons on board the truck. Having said that, a 150 gallon system typically holds, when you net out the after treatment devices of diesel that are needed, which you don't need with any natural gas engines, you're adding about 1,500 pounds to that truck chassis. The range itself really depends on what application you're in. The fuel economy of a natural gas truck, this is per Cummins, will see about a 10 to 15% fuel degradation on fuel economy as compared to a standard diesel truck. There's a break-in period that kind of leads to that. They typically talk about 50,000 miles where you're breaking in a spark-ignited engine, which leads to that fuel economy degradation. We see that once you get beyond that hurdle, a number of fleets, including one that you saw in our video testimonial there, will see fuel economy that's comparable to diesel. So again, what does that mean? If you get 6 miles per gallon on your diesel truck fleet and the application that you're hauling for and the terrain and topography that you're in, you should see a comparable fuel economy with your natural gas truck operation. 150 gallons on board, in theory, then would give you upwards of 900 miles in range.
Okay, thank you. Next question. I understand that Cummins only offers one 12-liter natural gas rating, which will limit the applications. I guess the person wants to know, in your view, how can natural gas be accepted if it is limited to specific applications?
Sure, great question. We'd certainly love more engines out on the road. We don't have to go through the various challenges that Cummins Engine Company does in, looking at market feedback and the significant cost involved in engineering a new engine and dropping it into all the various chassis and the OEM manufacturers. Let me just start with their product lineup that was quickly walked through in my presentation. There's a 6-7 liter that's came out that's certified in the near zero standard. There's a 9 liter that's really been the workhorse for the last 2 decades in a lot of vocational applications, specifically where you see that in refuse trucks and concrete ready mix, and then over in fixed route service in the transit districts. You'll see both of those engines more and more in straight truck, medium duty truck applications up to a 66,000 GVW rating. And then the 12 liter currently today being the highest engine rating. There's no question that several fleet operators around the states and certainly up in the various provinces in Canada have asked for a higher horsepower engine with more torque for the topography uniqueness of the country. And that's something I know that Cummins is looking at very closely. I don't want to speak on behalf of them, but we are optimistic, cautiously optimistic that over time, certainly with growing interest and just overall demand in the natural gas trucking industry, that you will see an increased product lineup that tackles some of those higher horsepower applications that fleets are looking for.
Okay, thank you. Three more if we have time to get to them. We got about 4 minutes left. So, can you comment on the CNG infrastructure in Canada, specifically in regards to Western Canada? Where
Sure.
are we now? What does the next 5 years look like? Will we have the ability to run all large and mid-size cities and have CNG readily available to fuel up?
Great question. There's certainly in our industry, I've been at this 20 years. There is the good old saying of the chicken and egg. What comes first? Fleets are interested in this. To buy a truck, we don't expect you to go out and make a 50 truck purchase if you have nowhere to fuel. It's hard for fuel providers like ourselves to speculate on where these stations should go and how soon we should get ahead of truck orders. I can say that at Clean Energy, we have a track record and the bruises and cuts to show of it of getting well ahead of the industry and truck purchases. We started out with what we phrased America's natural gas highway and built nearly 100 truck stop stations over a 3-year period back in 2014 through 2016 without a single truck purchase. We're not scared to do some version of that again. We are underway and methodically developing that network in the various provinces in Canada. We've seen growing interest, at least initially, from fleets and even some government incentives that help those fleets in the province of Ontario. That's led to a 3-station network. That's really just the start of a network in Ontario. We have launched a similar effort in Alberta and will continue to expand beyond this initial commitment to build 2 truck stop stations. And then moving over into Western Canada, historically, if you look at the natural gas space, has really been one of those early adopters and champions as a province. And we've seen tremendous movement and growth in refuse, as well as the transit districts. We have a strong presence in Western Canada right now to support those avenues. There's also a big movement with renewable natural gas that various folks are involved in. And certainly the utility itself is involved in. I certainly could see over the next 5 years up to a dozen stations for medium and heavy duty trucks to be built in Western Canada based on what we're looking at today in our pipeline. And that's just us. There's another handful of smaller entities that do pieces of what Clean Energy does in building out fuel networks. So again, with some level of commitment from fleets and interest from fleets, that's what we're looking for to go out and make those investments in the fueling network.
Okay. 1 minute left, so probably time for one question, and we may have to miss out on the other one. But
okay.
Depending on how quick the answer is, we might be able to get both. But, I wondered what percentage of sales are renewable natural gas versus liquid natural gas and compressed natural gas?
Sure, great question. Right now, Clean Energy delivers upwards of about 400 million gallons of fuel a year. And of that 400 million, about half of that is delivered via renewable natural gas. We have a stated sustainability goal in our recently released corporate sustainability report that you can find on our website to be 100% RNG by the year 2025. And we have a committed pathway to get there based on hundreds of $1 million in investments in upstream RNG projects that we're involved in today, as well as looking downstream at how we nominate that clean green RNG to various stations and deliver that to fleets. So we're excited to get there. And certainly by 2025, we won't be doing 400 million gallons a year. That number could be approaching double that or even 1 billion gallons, and all of which would be RNG. We're excited to be part of that process.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think, you know what, I don't think the last question will take that long to answer, so I'll flip it out anyway.
Okay.
Just quickly, and keep your answer brief if you can. We are at the limit, but if we go a minute or two over, that's fine. I'd rather get the last question answered. They want to know, what are the pros and cons, in your opinion, of natural gas versus propane?
Boy, well, heavy duty space, heavy duty space, to my knowledge, you don't have a viable propane application. You certainly don't have a OEM engine with OEM major chassis providers, Freightliner, Kenworth, Peterbilt, Volvo, so on and so forth. So
it's mainly
that-
more a light duty application.
Propane's
perhaps
been around a long time. It's a proven light duty application. I believe there's a handful of medium duty applications. I want to speak ill will of our friends in the alternative space. They'd be better to answer what product lineup that they do have available, beyond those platforms. So, we're happy to just be part of the alternative fuel solution and to look at fleets. And we always say right fuel for the right route. And that may be a portfolio approach that may always include some amount of your fleet on diesel. It may have some amount of your fleet on propane, some amount of your fleet on electric, and hopefully a large amount of your fleet on renewable natural gas. And again, that's just for the fleet to decide through a good amount of due diligence and discussions with the various providers.
Okay. Well, perfect. Thank you. Certainly, lots of questions was generated throughout your presentation. So lots of good info in there. We appreciate your contribution to our conference and for taking the time to record your presentation and then attend live with us here today for the questions and answers. So as you may or may not know, we started this 4 years ago. We don't give gifts out to our speakers anymore. What we do instead is we provide $1,000 donation to the Convoy for Special Olympics on behalf of our speakers as their replacement to that. So we'll make that donation on all our speakers' behalf. And again, thanks for joining us here today, Jed, and your contribution to our conference.
My pleasure. Thanks, Mike, and best of luck to the rest of the viewers in your conference.
Thank you. Take care. Mm-hmm.
Bye.
All right, everyone. So we are going